work in 10 minutes, but instead we're here talking COD.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Like all year, it's just learning how to correctly small talk.
Or McGregor,
and
where are you? You are
know
not
when
here.
to be aggressive
Who
and
is
when
that
to play
in the
back,
background?
because you could be making
I
a right
don't
play,
care if it is
but
Atlanta
if the rest
FaZe's
of your team
champion
isn't
analyst
blocking,
Austin
then
EasyMac
your
and
correct play
Tell
looks
him to
stupid,
shut
right?
up. Poor Michelle has to deal with Crimsix all by herself. Should not have sold your CDL cards here.
For you pick. So, I think they go Caesar and have him be that leaning off of them
I don't care, cunt. Get to work.
with the same pacing, and that works well with their SMGs, because they actually have a really
Shit.
Oh, no, why did Lionman leave abruptly? Podcast producer does not have the command graphic ready yet.
That's pretty funny, to be fair.
It was very good.
Yeah, you did a good job there. Okay, yeah, I reckon you just send us up. We can
I'm
say
so
hello.
zoomed in.
Yeah, you're good. Am I bright enough now, Emma? I feel like I was a bit dark. That should be good, right? Okay, sound. My voice is a bit funny today, but whatever. Go hard or go home.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right, cool. Yeah.
Popping off, eh?
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah. It's been mental, mate. It's been mental the last few days. It's all momentum, though. Like, get a couple of good ones, like a couple of days of good ones, and then, like, you're just rocking and rolling for a couple of weeks, and then it will tail off, and then October will be tough, but you know the drill. Can they see us yet in the stream, Omar? I don't have the actual stream up.
Yes.
They can hear us?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the stream, baby. It's Breaking Point podcast time. You know the vibe. This is going to be it's going to be a crazy one. There's no doubt about that. We've got Lion only for a certain period of time. So we'll probably crack on here in like T-minus 2 minutes, I reckon, because Lion's got work. It's super early in the morning. So we want to get done before the flank. You know how it is. So fantastic stuff. Give it like a minute for people to come in, and like if we're good to go, we can crack on. Let me put that there, and I'll put the rest of you lads up on this side of the screen.
Do we have the topic somewhere?
Yeah, topics are in the Discord. If you scroll up a bit, I can also just link an Imgur in.
Oh, I see.
In here. I mean, yeah. All good. Fantastic. Yeah, lines up at the crack of dawn, let's be honest. And I guess your boss has told you this week that you're on call.
Yeah, I actually am working today.
Yeah. That's unfortunate, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay, all good. We've got 45 minutes. I reckon we crack on, Omo. We're good to go. Chug appearance for the lads. I'll be 650 bubbles or whatever they're called.
Yeah, I've actually.
Club Smashers back again. Appreciate you, fella. And we're in. Okay, we're good to go. I'll give us a 3, 2, 1. We can crack on. Welcome all to the stream. Follow if you're new. We're not far away from 1,000 followers, so love to see that. Save it up for the live match. Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay, cool. Give us a 3, 2, 1. Today's going to be mental. All right, cool. 3, 2, 1. Actually, episode 33? 33. Yeah. 33. Almost got there, lads. Almost got shook. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoyed your day so far. And welcome to episode 33 of the Breaking Point podcast. This one is going to be crazy. So much has happened this last week. It's tough to honestly put it into words. There's absolute chaos in the cold scene. Rostermania was hitting the fan. And well, I'm joined here by Lionman and EasyMac to break it all down for you guys today. It's been an absolute chaotic week, gents. And Austin, like, I know you and the FaZe guys must be sitting back and relaxing and enjoying the show while the rest of the league tries out, well, scrambles together and does their best to take you guys down next year. It's been a remarkable few days.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I think the coaches are the only thing that just have to resign for us, but everything else is just pretty much we're, sitting pretty, so we get to watch on from the sidelines.
Wonderful. Well, you guys are like the only. Oh, not bad. You guys are like the only team that doesn't need to make a change at all. Like, I fully expected OpTic to stay together, but what the heck is going on there?
A very good question. We've got you for about 40-ish minutes today, Lion, because work is calling, but I'm sure we can get through a lot of stuff before then. So, well, thanks to all those joining us live right now on Twitch, on the verge of 1,000 subscribers, not subscribers, followers, one day 1,000 subscribers. And yeah, YouTube's been killing it. Spotify, if you're listening over the Apple Podcast, really appreciate you. And well, let's dive into the show. Rostermania has been nuts. There's nowhere else to go. The first thing that really kicked things off was the whole like Crimsix and Vivid getting dropped. Because when Crimsix got benched, I was like, okay, this is going to be a mental Rostermania. Because my expectation was that Dallas would go Crim and Shotzzy and then like consider other options, like, you know, maybe Illey, maybe Vivid, don't really know, maybe a one-man change, right? Thought that was maybe one of the most likely options. As soon as Crimsix gets put to the bench, like, the questions are seriously getting raised. So he comes out with a tweet, you know, restricted free agent for 2022. I mean, look, Vivid also, I think, could be a very valuable piece. So when this happened, I was like, okay, wow, we are in for a wild ride. And Crimsix especially, Vivid, I think, can also be a very valuable piece to a lot of teams in terms of the SMG role. There's not many SMGs like him, so he'll find a spot somewhere. I'm sure of it pretty much. You never know, really, though. Like guys like Asim had a tough time last season. But Crimsix is one of those players that, in theory, can walk into a lot of these teams. I think a lot of these teams struggle for that kind of like final step of winning tournaments. And Crim might be a guy to provide that, which is going to be, I mean, it's just going to be mind-blowing. I don't know where Crim's going. Like, could he team up with Clay again over at New York? But it's not going to be on Dallas, because what's going on with Dallas is, well, it remains to be seen, but it's kind of beggars belief, Austin.
Yeah, just one quick thing, too, is for any, like, American viewers here, the way that the Call of Duty community, like, categorizes restricted and unrestricted is really weird. Because I actually saw this a lot where people were just like, oh, if the merger happens with OpTic, right? They still own the rights to Crimsix, so they can match whatever contract they would want, right? People have like so in American sports, when you're an unrestricted free agent, it means like, or a restricted free agent, it means like you can still go to other teams, and if you get an offer, then the team that you were on before gets the rights to match it. And I've seen people say like, oh, OpTic can still match Crimsix's rights, but that's not how it's being used in the CDL. In reality, what it is this Crim is benched. He's not like a free agent. He's just benched, and then they're trying to look to sell him. So they're giving him the green light to go find like, that's how you got to look at that. But I did not really expect the Crimsix one at all. I think obviously Hastro loves Crim. He's been trying to get him since before the dynasty started. So it's really weird to see him just get cut like that. But then when like the news broke after, it makes sense in the long run. But one thing I was kind of interested in is they picked Illey. Like, if that rumor holds true, then they picked Illey over Crim. So I think that's really interesting way to look at that. I don't know how you see that line.
Oh, Lion, you're on mute.
I think it'll be like,
be?
it would have been such a surprise to see Crim dropped without like that news to follow up. I think that's the only way we could have seen Crim off that team, is if there was like a massive thing like OpTic merging with them to come together. But I'm just surprised that, yeah, you said Illey. He had a pretty tough season, but I feel like maybe going into a game with the Modern Warfare engine will suit him well, and so he might fit on that team. But do you guys think that they're looking for someone else to come in for that fourth like spot, or that main AR, or like flex position?
I don't think so right off the rip.
I kind of doubt, you know, that they're, at least the rumor at the current time, guys, if you've been living under a rock, is that there's going to be this crazy merger. We'll dive into it in a second, what this roster might actually look like and the pros and the cons of it, because there's been a fair bit of talk about that as well. But the idea is, and this is what the article that Crone and Jacob Wolf came out with, I think that Crone was like hearing a lot of this stuff, and he was kind of, he wanted to make sure the sources were kind of verified before putting an absolute bombshell of an article like this out there. But effectively what he goes on to talk about is that without currently Chicago Huntsman was part of NRG because that's what happened to happen for Hex to stay in the league. Then he gets the OpTic branding back last year by buying out the OGLA spot and then selling it on to Nadeshot for Los Angeles Thieves. So Hex wants to effectively split off from NRG, but can't fund the team on its own back, which is also an interesting story. And therefore, like a partnership with Envy makes a fair bit of sense. My expectation is OpTic Dallas is the most sensible name. Hex wants everything to be OpTic, then something, and of course, it's got to have some sort of city name. So the Dallas name, Dallas Empire, might just disappear. The team might be what it is, but I think that is obviously a massive question mark. To me, the thing with Crimsix is like, it's so the storyline for him is remarkable because he got dropped by Scump in 2019 after the World Championship, then goes to the Dallas Empire, builds up a big brand in Dallas, to be fair, at least helps to do so, wins them a World Championship. Now, after a season, which is a pretty solid season, all things considered, they got got a couple of seconds, third of champs, like not bad given the team on paper is obviously it's a pretty damn good team on paper, but like it's not not quite the firepower of FaZe and maybe some other squads you could argue. So they had a good season, I guess, all things considered, not good enough. And now Crimsix has got effectively dropped for Scump to come into the team. And like Scump comes in, kind of merges the organizations together. And Crimsix is the one who finds himself out on the sidelines again. And he was just saying in a Deserter interview during Champs, like he was really hoping that he didn't have to deal with the Rostermania stuff this year. Like he was really hoping it was going to be a calm one because I think he's got his like wedding coming up or something. So he's been thrown right into the mix. And where will Crim go to me is a huge question because there's a lot of teams that could do it. If you're Crim, you want to go to a big name squad. You would imagine LA Thieves is off the cards. So you've got to think maybe about Minnesota Rocker. Don't know what's going on. Potentially a Florida Mutineers, but that would be interesting because Crim and Neptune had their back and forth. I'm sure you remember that one, Austin, right at the start of the season. So yeah, it's honestly pretty chaotic, Austin. I don't know where Crim goes.
Yeah. So when you look at it, there's pretty much LAG. He could go there and reset that like culture there. I don't know if he wants to build from scratch though. Again, you have Seattle, which is also going to be building from scratch, but doesn't have the best like management reputation. He could go back to New York if Clay is still there. He could join up with Clay again, do kind of what they did in Dallas, but there. And then other than that, I really don't see the Florida play in the cards with Skies there, and Awakening. So I don't see that in the cards. But so his options are really limited. Another opportunity if this merger does go through is Chicago. So he could go to Chicago technically, and whoever gets that spot, or if it's like whatever the deal is with that, he could also go there and reset that because what a lot of people are forgetting is that if they merge, that Chicago spot now has 4 empty slots in it. So a lot of these require him to build a new team, which kind of sucks because there's not as much blue chip talent available as people would think, right? Like you have like Envoy as a free agent, right? Like he's an unrestricted free, like no buyout. But other than that, like how many other free players do you have? And if you're a new organization coming in, do you want to spend like $1 million plus on buyouts, buying out Huke, buying out all these big players? Like it's going to be tough for him to build a team that he wants right away. So this blow definitely sucks for him. I do hope he lands on his feet though, because we do need like having him be on a good team is good for the league.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Lionman's managed to freeze or something. Trying to get back to our cameras, but I've managed to lost it. Oh, there we go. Oh no, Lion's went back, baby. Let's go, baby.
I'm back. Is it my turn to speak?
I believe
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. The biggest part I found is, well, the saddest part of all of this is that my favorite branding in the CDL was the Dallas Empire. The gold, just the real small finesse, like the crown, the just the way that they integrated Envy into the logo, like it was perfect. And I'm kind of surprised that Hastro isn't more bullish on the fact that that's such good branding and that he's just gonna take on OpTic as his like new brand. Because I felt like he's very like Envy before anything else, and so to see him like not have like a solid stance on that, and like to bring OpTic in and be a part of OpTic, I find that ultimately quite surprising. But where Crimsix could go, I actually have no idea. I think the most likely place is probably New York because Clay is there and there's that history, and then Mac and ASIM is still on the roster, right?
Yeah, at least right now. Like Mac's been doing some tweets, but it's tough to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Hydra,
Hydra
of
as
course,
well.
is about.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense having Hydra, Asim, Crim, and Clay. Just like that team having a young SMG, two old heads, and then having Asim there is just like that kind of like in between of young and veteran player. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the most likely, but we'll have to wait and see. This roster media has been crazy, so I've got no idea.
I think that Chicago slot is the big question mark. Because if a big org comes in, I mean, there's been like Cloud9. I mean, to be like E and I had baited the whole scene. Don't even want to talk
Yeah.
about that. But the Paris is of course a question. To be fair, we will get to that in a little while. But the Chicago spot is open, and you'd think that a big team hops in there. If that is the case, like that is going to be a serious target, I think, for a lot of these big name free agents, and Crim could be one of them. But I do just feel bad, like, because Crim's got to effectively build another roster from scratch in the same way. Like he had Shotzzy and Illey. No one really wanted to take a chance on these guys. Crimsix does it, and then like 2 seasons down the line, it just gets all his hard work ripped away from him. It's like there's a revenge storyline in there. That's certainly what should be said. Um, I mean, any thoughts quickly on where Vivid should go? Because like Vivid could go with Crim. Like they seem to get along reasonably well. I thought like when all the OpTic stuff happened, I was wondering if Vivid could find his way over there. But like you've always got to think about like the content and the personalities and stuff. And Vivid hasn't maybe developed that kind of on-camera personality yet. So I don't know if that will really affect anything for some of these orgs because he's a very solid player, and there's not many particularly solid aggro SMGs you can find. Like he could be a good partner for Envoy or something on some team that might be considering it, like a LA Thieves or something. But LA Thieves is really the big question mark to me because like I don't know what's actually going to happen, but I think a lot of people would suggest that it's going to be Octane Kenny on the ARs, and then you're going to find two SMGs. Whether Draz is one of those, whether Huke's one of those. Seems like John isn't going to be one of those because he removed it from his bio. So you've then got like the Envoy question, you've got the Vivid question, you've got like New York's coming into the fray. Like it's honestly too hard to call, probably. And anything can still change as well, Austin.
So one quick thing is Hastro on Twitter? I just want to go look him up, and he's just not there.
No,
because
I mean I saw him tweet about the Halo League.
yeah, I can't find it, but that was just I'm off
Hastro with an
topic there,
O.
but with the
Hastro with a
Vivid
zero,
thing.
sorry.
Okay, there it is. Yeah. So
Yeah.
with Vivid, I think Vivid is in one of the most difficult spots because I feel like he actually proved himself on Dallas to have a really good season, but he's in a tough spot where a lot of the top teams already have some AR plans set forward. So I have a feeling he's going to get stuck on more of a middle of the pack team again, whether that's I mean, sheesh. I mean, like Minnesota seems pretty set on their SMGs. New York has like 3 options over there for SMGs. LA Thieves, I really think they're probably going to go more of the Huke and Envoy. With the way that organization is run, they put a lot of value in your reputation and like having that history, like you're proven. So like having Envoy, I think is without question. I think that's their number one target. Like again, Crowder said on his stream the other day, if we went back to 5v5, he would be on our team in a heartbeat. Like we would go after
Wow.
him so hard. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So like LA Thieves is 100% targeting him. Whether or not he goes there because he's gonna have a lot is to be seen. But if they do get Envoy, I think the clear second one, if it can be patched up within the organization, is Huke. And weirdly enough, I've seen a lot of people say that they have the same play styles, but Huke and Envoy to me are very different. Huke is more fly at you head on, in your face pressure, right? And Envoy is more, passive. He's gonna outthink you with his routes. He's gonna try to, go from the side. So I feel like that duo would really work. And if they do have any combination on their ARs, I do feel really like confident that their gun skill will be probably number 2, number 3 in the league, up there with like the rumored team and then our team. So, yeah, I definitely think that would be a good duo. But then that leaves like where does Vivid go? So he's definitely in a tough spot. I do hope he's able to sneak onto one of these top teams because he's definitely had a up and down roller coaster 2 years, but he's definitely proven that when he's in a system that works around him, he's one of the best like entry SMGs in the entire league. So it's tough.
I'm surprised you think that well actually I wouldn't say surprised, but would you consider like Envoy and Hook a very similar play style to a BZ and Sim? Because I wouldn't on face value.
Not so like the thing with Simp is he's closer to Scump, where he's more like methodical, as in like he'll hold down a lane knowing that two guys are gonna be coming in that lane. Like he's like 10 steps ahead of you. Where Envoy, he's more like Zuma in my mind, where
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna if I take this route, it cuts off. We'll be able to apply a pinch here. Like he's like thinking that way. So there's like four different ways you can play SMG. You can either be like really aggressive as your entry. You can be kind of like the Zuma Envoy, like flank heavy. You can be like the Scump Simp, more like pre-aim, like methodical on that front. Or you can just be kind of like the objective hill player that's more of like the dirty work. So
Yeah.
as long as you just have any two of those combinations, you can make it work. It's just can those it goes to a lot to like the communication and how your AR is played too. So I definitely think Envoy and Huke can work.
Yeah, I think just a lot of people would consider, because FaZe was so dominant, that system's really the only one that can dominate matches. But I don't think that's true. I think just they're so good
100%,
naturally
yeah.
that they just dominated. So it really depends. I think Hook could be good next year. We just have to wait and see how the title really suits them. Because I think
Yeah.
regardless, FaZe is going to be in that same sort of spot.
Mm.
They're just going to find a way. You guys are always going to find a way, to be honest.
Yeah. There's no one right way to play COD too. It's just about piecing it together with what you have, right? And figuring out how to bring the best out of your players. So um a lot of people give JCap shit. Obviously our good friend Brandon is also there as the analyst. JCap is one of the smartest players, but the tough thing with the coaching staff is you really need like two sides of a coin. So like if you have JCap, who's more of the X's and O's, right? You need someone that will bring the like the intensity, bring the hype. So like we have like RJ, who's like really like he'll tell you right to your face what you're doing wrong, and then you have Chris Crowder, who's like I'm gonna hype the boys up, we're gonna fucking do this, right? So
Yeah.
it works on like both fronts, and I think like a lot of teams are learning that you just can't have one. You got to have a good balance on each side, because that's how you pull the best out of each player, and like not like stagnate, which in like the league that we have, it's really easy to stagnate and fall behind.
I think that's fair. Like I think if Thieves, as they do, have Huke just chilling there on the bench, like, you know, I think you've got to give it another go. They said before he was benched for the second time, they did say that like they were trying to work with him behind the scenes to make it fit into the organization, the structure, and maybe without if Slasher isn't there. And that's another great question where Slasher ends up if Octane comes in there. There's too many things to even really wrap your head around. But like that would be what I think I would give it a go, because Envoy and Huke on paper, it's the same thing with Envoy to OpTic as it is Huke to Los Angeles Thieves, as you don't want to get rid of either of those players really, because there's a very good chance they're just going to rock up to another organization and make them a lot better. And this might be the exact chance to do so. And I talked about it today in a video, but Envoy's been doing some tweets. It seems like they parted on good terms, the OpTic guys, and understandable with the roster we're just about to talk about. But it's still one of those things that Envoy, I'm sure, having had his spell on OpTic and Huntsman and been like the prodigal son or whatever of Scump are going to be the next up, and now that's no longer the case, at least for the near future, then I'm sure he wants to let it be known that they made a mistake getting rid of him, or whatever the case might be. So I'm sure that's in the back of his mind, whatever team he does go to. And that means that this Envoy Huke duo we've been discussing is probably going to be especially scary. But the next big topic, I mean, we've already cracked through a fair few big topics, but the real one that was like a really sad kind of a shock. I wasn't expecting it per se, but I felt like it was nearing, was Formal's retirement. So Scump went on to confirm that pretty much like they'd come to the decision to eventually drop Envoy and Formal, and he decided, understandably so, that instead of going to another organization and dealing with all the hassle of that, and not being at his best anyway, it seems like he didn't have the greatest season by his standards at all, to step away now and pursue a content side on OpTic, probably is sensible, but still a massive, like a top 5 player of all time retiring. There's not too many of them left, so pretty incredible, to be honest. Thoughts, Austin?
You-
It's a strange day.
Yeah,
I
so
can go
even
either.
even though he's like kind of struggled the past like 4 years, you can call it. They've only won 3 tournaments, and 2 of those are homestands in the last 4 years. Um, he was still a top 5 AR, like main AR, when you look at it that way. Like he was still at the top of his game. He just wasn't putting up the 1.2s, 1.3s that people are, used to. And when he talked about it, he said he just wasn't feeling like he just couldn't get on every day and put in 100% effort, and it's not fair to the team. So, um, obviously, Seth came out and said like they made the decision to cut him and Envoy. So what it comes down to is like, do you want to go out and build a whole new team? And that's a lot of effort. That's a lot to go through. And I just don't think he wanted to put in all of that and restart and rebuild when he has a good chance to, take a year off, recoup, become probably a massive streamer. Like when you think of his personality, he is just he's an instantly like grow really big. It's gonna be like the Zuma effect all over again. So I think give him some time. I don't know if this is permanent. I definitely think in like a year he's gonna have that competitive itch, and who knows, he may be back. But it definitely is a sad day of Call of Duty. 2 years in a row. First we lost Karma, now we lost Formal. So yeah, it's definitely tough.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just thought I couldn't believe that Envoy wasn't going to be on the roster for next year when that came out. Guys, you guys sipping constantly is actually so off-putting. Come on, just put it down. But
Look at the
so
7,
yeah,
baby.
to get rid of Formal and Envoy, I found that at the time very shocking, and the fact that they're merging made it make sense. But touching on Formal, I feel like if next year is potentially a Jetpack COD, we'll see him back. If we look at his career, those 3 years of Jetpack COD, AW, BO3, and IW were easily his most dominant. And I think throughout that period, he averaged like a 1.25 KD, like it was crazy. But I'm not sure. Do you guys think that, because they were mentioning it, that it's possible they skip Vanguard and then they come back together as a team next year and see what happens? I think that would be a really
That'd
strange
be
thing to do.
mental.
But
Like,
yeah, but it'll be like such a
yeah.
throwback.
I
It
wonder, like,
depends.
I think the formal jetpacks discussion is a fair point, but it's so rare that a player will take a year off and make the return. Like, we even saw it with Karma. Like, there was talks recently that he was offered a spot last year on New York, even this season, actually. Apparently, New York wanted him to come into their team at some point, and even some other orgs as well. And, like, he just didn't want to make the comeback, which is understandable, and it's like you kind of, if you're a great content creator, you really only have something to lose. I don't know. It's like some sports like UFC and stuff, like people retire and they just come back all the time. But it seems like with COD, kind of once you're done and you've kind of put that like
Well,
competitor behind you, not always the
Karma
case.
did. Karma did retire and come back. He retired in World War II, came back, started BO4,
It
was
was
still a
kind of a
prominent player.
retirement, but like I remember he said on stream at the time that he was like he'd been benched and he didn't really want to go elsewhere. So he was saying that like I kind of still want to compete, but I know that if I do take this break, then very few people come back from it.
Yeah.
And as you said, like he did come back and was a great player. And even I think even today, to be fair, like if Karma actually put his back into it, he could still be a really good player in the league. I think he's still got the talent and
Yeah.
he's like such a cerebral player. We could do it, but I don't know. Formal didn't quite seem to have like not quite the mindset maybe of previous seasons. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it
Yeah.
felt like he wasn't quite the player that he was.
Well,
The
I
only
feel
way.
like he. Okay, go for it.
No. You go. You go.
Oh, I feel like he's always been that kind of spirit, like just a little bit loose, a little bit, easygoing, and then would just play and be dominant. Like that was kind of just he would rely on his gameplay and like his just base knowledge, and not really like ever be 100% serious. It seemed like throughout his entire career. Um, and so I guess that this year that didn't really change. I just think that the league has gotten so competitive that it was just more difficult. But anyway, Austin, you go for it.
So there's like two scenarios. So I definitely do think he's just really burnt out, and he just wants time off, and he wants to just be able to relax for the first time in probably what 10 years, 12 years. Because you got to think he was also playing Halo before Call of Duty. So I definitely see a world where like let's say because realistically the way you got to look at this is if this merger does happen, right? They had Shotzzy and they had Envoy, and they chose Shotzzy, right, over Envoy, which is I think that's okay. And then the two ARs they have is Dashy and Illey. And then when you look at it, they had formal Crimsix, and they chose those two, right? So they chose the Dashy and Illey. So I don't. So like, if this Dallas or Chicago or whatever, I don't even know what to call them, Dallas, I guess. If they don't do well this next season, and like one of their AR struggles, and Formal kind of rejuvenates himself, right, and he wants to come back, I can see him coming back, right? I can definitely see that. If the Dallas team does really really well, and they're like winning tournaments next year, a question he will have to probably ask himself is, do I want to go to another organization and try to make a comeback, right? And a lot of times when that does happen, like a player, especially when you're on Optic, you saw that with Maniac, you saw that with I don't even know actually, but you like you'll see like a player choose to be the content creator on Optic or on whatever, instead of trying to make a comeback on a different org and putting in that 7 hours a day of practice and grinding and grinding and grinding, and who knows if you'll even be able to find a good team. So it'll definitely be a hard year for the CDL without him in it. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah. I feel like his main push towards content though is because Zoom has been so successful in this last year. It's kind of just opened up a different avenue for COD content creators. And believe it or not, I feel like the scene this year did grow, especially content wise. Even we're getting into it, and it's like I think more opportunities are coming for these players where they don't need to play; they can just focus on content and make it that way. And especially someone like Formal, like back in
Oh
Black
my
Ops
god.
3, back in Black Ops 3, he averaged like 8,000 viewers a stream and was just like while still scrimming every day. And if he didn't have competitive COD to really hold him back, I feel like he could easily push into like the 15, 20,000 viewer range if he gets that sort of fan base over time.
His streams, like back in, I didn't really watch much COD and Advanced Warfare, but I remember watching so many like stream highlight videos from Formal from that era, like just incredibly interesting. And when I really got in Black Ops 3, like Formal, I think Karma was the main stream I would watch, but like Formal was like second if Karma wasn't on. So like that was quite the duo back in the day. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough to see him return because exactly as you say, Lion, like once you move down that route, it's like with Methods, right? Because Zuma's
Mm.
obviously cranking out like 17,000 subs on Twitch, but Methods is at like 6-7K, which is like an incredible like living.
Yeah.
So Formal can easily get there. So
Did you ever
Same thing
see
with like Blacked.
MLG.TV?
I like you mean the days where like Scump and Nature was streaming on that and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah.
That was rough.
Dude. Tough days.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
next season content for players is going to be a golden opportunity for them, because we're going back to the same engine that Warzone's on, and Warzone's getting a lot of new content coming in. And Sledgehammer, who's making the next game, has always done right by us, on the at least on the competitive side, with rewards, with having a decent league play, with all that. So I definitely think this offseason, if a lot of these players use it right, will really springboard themselves into a great content year. So I definitely see a chance for him to still kill it, like Formal still kill it as a content creator, and then be able to come back without skipping a beat. I think that was like something that like Zuma this year, like his stream is absolutely killing it. If he ever came back, like you don't have as much time to do those streams. You don't have as much time to create that content. Will your content still do as well when you don't have as much time to invest into it? And like obviously the answer this year was no, but next year I really do think we're gonna enter like this golden opportunity that we haven't had since probably Black Ops 2, for players to create content and compete at a high level and really have, a way to make an income on two different fronts that's going to be really, really good for them and all the orgs in the CDL.
Do you actually think that this like Vanguard could do better for content than like Black Ops 3?
Yes, because of the
Black
BR.
Oh, okay. The Black Ops 3 pubs, like I remember
Yeah.
Scump had a series called 70. Do you remember it?
When you try to
He
get
100%.
70 kills with all the
Every
different
video
weapons.
was the same
Yeah.
thumbnail.
Same thumbnail, same title, and he averaged like
It
800K
was just called
views on a pub.
17 dot, and like
Yeah,
it was actually unreal. Just playing
yeah,
Thing
TDM
is,
trying to get
like
70 kills.
like the money's in streaming now. So like,
yeah.
and the easiest thing to stream is just Warzone. You just hop in that and you mindlessly play. So I definitely think there's a really good chance for like a really strong cross pollination between BRs and competitive play. If they just do it right and they just the CDL really tries to link into the Warzone. The Warzone tournaments really try to link in with the CDL. I think there's a strong possibility that this could be the best like content year for a lot of these players, probably since Black Ops 3, Black Ops 2. Those times where you'd just be able to pub stomp, but with BRs you really can't pub stomp anymore because casuals just don't care about multiplayer. Multiplayers come more of a like pseudo competitive, like a lot of people like try hardy. So we're in a a iffy era for content with Call of Duty where it's trying to find a home. Like what's the best way to do it? So I just hope we have a good year for it. I hope we figure it out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Do you think if like the volatility of skill-based matchmaking wasn't so harsh, we could see that content return? Like when you join a pub, it's chill. You can get as many kills as you want. You don't have to actually play competitively. Do you think that pubs could make a return in that way? Because it has been like 4 years-ish since pubs were like not extremely difficult.
I don't think that content would do well anymore. Because if you think about it, like a lot of times when like you'll see like streamers drop like 70 kills in a Warzone lobby, the first question is always, what kind of lobby was it? Was it a diamond lobby or a silver lobby? And like people will instantly just like shit on the competition that you were playing instead of like hype up the accomplishment you got. So I think the best avenue for content is having a really, really good ranked system to where you can style on people in ranked, and then people would be like, oh my god, he's doing that in X ranked. Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? So as I said, like we're in such a weird content situation within Call of Duty where there's no clear like avenue to go to make content that's like gonna like click. So it will be a lot of experimenting coming up in the next like 4 months once the game drops.
Yeah, the next step's probably like a really good rank system for Warzone.
It needs it, especially after Apex
Yeah.
has been killing it.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, Apex
Let's
has made the return,
dive
eh?
in.
Sorry.
Go on. No, it's all good. It's all good. I just want to make
Hey,
sure we have timeline while you're still here to talk about like
you've still got 10
this
minutes.
OpTic Dallas team. Unless you have if you have one final point, it's okay.
I literally was just saying Apex is killing it, but that's it.
It is, to be fair. Like I see people tweeting about it all the time. Maybe I
love
need to
Apex.
download it. Yeah, give it a go. So we did obviously talk about this before, but I know people in the chat are like, OpTic Dallas merger, have you guys talked about it yet? There's like two really interesting angles on this. I think the first one is the rumored team, Scump, Shotzzy, Dashy, Illey. Like, let's just break it down real quick, because talent-wise, it's pretty much off the scale. It's pretty much as good as you could realistically do, at least in terms of the SMG line. Like, if there's one player that you'd be like, he's hard carrying his team, put him alongside Scump, like Shotzi's probably the guy, and I'm confident he can like. Even though towards the end of this title it was more Vivid running the mad entry role, like I think Shotzi can basically do whatever's required here. Dashy is kind of the main AR. I think makes perfect sense. I think that's honestly where he should be. Just slay and drop a 1.1, 1.15. Like that is going to be, if he can play like Insight, then that's kind of what you need. And I think maybe even in Modern Warfare, I remember Slasher said that Dashy came into that OGLA team expecting to be in the main AR, but it didn't, Slasher was going to run that role, so there was a conflict. And then this year with the whole Dashy formal stuff, it maybe didn't work as well as it could at times. It's pretty rare that both of those guys were going off at once. Obviously, I think the big question mark in a way is Illey, because as you said earlier, Austin, like Crim could have been here, right? And that flex role, like that's not out of the realms of possibility. But instead we get Dashy and Illey, this kind of like OG S&D star duo comes into this squad. And Illey, everyone's talking about it, but there's a lot of pressure on him, right? Like he's got to, not only is he got to replace their, I guess, the communication from Envoy and Formal, but he's also got to be a particularly decent slayer, and it's tough. And I do wonder if we talked about it last week. We thought that the OpTic guys maybe lacked discipline to some degree, and maybe the merger means that we get Rambo in there as well, which could well help deal with some of that stuff. But that's the question to be like, the talent is out of control. On paper, their search and destroy is ridiculous, but can they translate it to reality without some of the pieces that have proven to do it in the past? It's I think it's a question mark. Like I think this is a good way of trying to take down FaZe, but it's not guaranteed to click.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see like the fundamentals and the structure and more of like the in-game leadership of the roster. I like the gun skill is out of this world, right? The only question mark I really have is Illey. I feel like Illey has not been the shining star the past 2 years. Like I felt like he's been like kind of like lackluster, but he like has his like shining moments. So it's just about being like finding that consistently. And I don't know if this is like the best roster where you're gonna find that consistently, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like you have a lot of stars and you have a lot of like mouths to feed on this roster, and I just feel like he might struggle. And I hope like he'll have to find a role that he's comfortable in, because on every team there's one player that's uncomfortable. Like for us, it was always Alec. Alec was always trying to make it work, trying to pick up the slack wherever it was needed, and he just always felt uncomfortable. Like one of the hardest things, like when you're that player, finding the way to make it work and still be a positive asset for the team is really hard. So he's definitely gonna be the one I'm gonna keep my eye on. Also, you have Dashy and on that main AR role, which we haven't really. When's the last time we saw that? Like World War II.
Pretty much,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I get like I don't really believe in the flex AR role. Usually it's just like two ARs, two SMGs. So as long as him and Illey like find a way to make it work on the map, I think he'll be fine. And then when like with Scump, I feel like now Scump's going to be in an important role where he's going to have to pick up the slaying. Like because I feel like Shotzzy's going to be more of a like the Envoy-esque player. So Scump's going to have to continue to playing like the way he was this year, because I feel like this was probably his best year in 4.5 years, right? Like
Probably,
he was
yeah.
he was really really good this season. So if he
Like
can keep
IW.
that going, yeah, if he can keep that going and Shotzzy continues, like Shotzi's not going to dip. That guy is just crazy. Then I feel like the front line will be able to carry them to victory, even if their back line's struggling. So it's just when the moment gets tense and it's like 220 to 220, who's calling the shot? Who's directing the team? Like who's calling the round 11 play? You know, who's going to keep this team from not, disintegrating when they're in a tough moment? And that is where people aren't seeing the leadership, right? And there's only so much the coaches can do. Like people that kind of doubt that, like I always doubted that there was a need for an IGL when we saw Modern Warfare's phase, and then when I
Sure.
saw Cold War's phase, you could like immediately see the difference. And
Mhm.
so I definitely think that is a valuable asset that teams need, definitely in 4v4 when it's really punishing, because 5v5 you can get away with so much, and especially with squad spawns, you didn't have to be fundamental. It was just whoever had the just run forward at each other. So now it's really punishing, so you're going to need that person that directs the troops.
Yeah, the biggest problem I see for Illey is that coming into this team, he's replacing arguably the best AR in COD history. Like, it's a tough spot to be in to start with. And so everyone's hoping for a player that's better than that player. And they look at Illey and they see his last 2 years and they don't really think that he is, much better, if better at all, than Formal. Um, and shit, how can I put this? I feel like he has to be almost that player that is sacrificing himself for the better of the team, like Alec this year, like Formal last year. Like, you've got three extremely talented players, but the only problem they really had, well, last year the slaying was just not their problem at all. Like, I feel I tweeted this or in a reply. I was like, I think mainly it was OpTic's discipline last year, and I thought that like a player like Slasher to come into that team, so it's Slasher, Shotzzy, Dashy, and Scump would be an ideal fit. And then people have said maybe not because of OGLA, Slasher and Dashy might not work well together. But I felt like having that leader, having that vocal leader who in those hard moments can give like a soothing voice, not soothing voice, but like a calculated voice within all the madness. Slasher could be that player. But yeah, we'll have to see. The dynamic of this team doesn't quite make perfect sense yet, but when the next game comes around, I think we'll see something different. So not sure yet how this team's going to work.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree. It's interesting because I feel like I will feel bad for Illey when they fall short and he gets like, he's lined up to be the scapegoat here, right? Like it's pretty clear cut. He's playing the karma role of previous eras. Yeah, I think you're right, Line, in the way that I worry about this team getting to like I think that they can more consistently get to like a top 3 level, but I feel like they might, I don't know, almost do a phase of Modern Warfare and kind of get to a fair few finals and then fall short to maybe a slightly more experienced or disciplined or better prepared team. So that's kind of like my very early calls because we don't even know if this team is happening or whether the merger's happening or anything. Don't know if any
Yeah,
have any final thoughts, guys. Yeah.
I don't think that team is going to be the one that comes out next year for OpTic. I just
Hmm.
don't. I feel like, yeah, maybe Shotzzy, but I feel like Illey, it's very unlikely that he's going to be on that team. It's just my opinion.
I
Interesting.
think it's if Formal is retiring and Envoy's a free agent, that I feel like that's the team of 4 you're getting if it does happen, which all signs are pointing to it. The one thing I'm really worried about is we all know how OpTic fans, like the bad portion of them can be, and I really hope that, because like obviously as we're saying, Illey will be the obvious scapegoat. Um, you have the MVP in Shotzzy from 2 years ago. You have Scump, who is obviously Scump, and you have Dashy, who has been like the good graces of OpTic for like 3 years now. So like, I just hope Illey, like, I hope the pressure doesn't get to him. I hope like the fans don't get to him. I just like that's my one nerve. Like every time somebody joins OpTic, I'm just like one series and like they turn on you so quickly. So I'd really hope he just doesn't get destroyed during the season if this team doesn't have the highs right off the rip that they are looking for as a fan base. So yeah, definitely gonna
Yeah,
be he's in a tough spot.
it's pretty much win at all costs. Like if you don't win, this team's going to get bashed. Like
Yeah.
as always. And I feel like this year more so than last year because last year those players were like fan favorites. OpTic solidified. This next year, it's kind of like if those players, especially the Dallas players, don't play beyond like what they're capable of, they're going to get absolutely smoked.
That's fair. I think one thing I will throw in quickly here, just before you leave us, line, because I think you're on the clock, but is that Illey and Shot like Dallas out of the North American teams, Dallas was my favorite team because the personalities of Shotzzy, Illey, and Huke when they were a trio are absolutely hilarious. Like Shotzi's stream is top class if people ever tune in. Illey is like hilarious and those as a duo, like actually getting the exposure that I think they deserve on like podcasts and stuff, there will be some fantastic content that comes out of those lads.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that. But any last thoughts, Line? Because I think you might be
Yeah, you actually made a good point on like
ish.
Shotzzy and Ellie, but yeah, I do need to leave in a minute. But I think if they're able to stream, I'd love to see that because back in
Hmm.
Black Ops 4, those two doing like 2v2, 3v3 S&D tournaments together was brilliant to watch just because they're so cohesive and they work together so well. And so I
Yeah,
think
cracking.
those
Oh my god,
two, especially with
team is
Dashy, like
scary.
those three in S&D could be really scary. And I feel that last year that was the biggest problem OpTic had because they were pretty consistent in respawn. But then when it came to search and destroy against teams like Toronto, especially, they'd always fall short. And I think this year, having Illy, Shotzzy, and Dashy together might actually work in their favor. So we'll have to see. That team could be pretty scary in S&D. But anyway, I'll leave you there, and I'll catch you guys later.
Fantastic stuff. Been a pleasure, Line. Have a good time at
Yeah,
work.
thank you. Ready
Chat
the
will miss
two-man
you.
graphic, Omar. Ready it.
Yeah.
All
Get the
right,
2-man graphic ready. All
sweet.
right, take
Catch you
care.
guys.
In a bit. There we have it, ladies and gents. Lyman's gone. It was a good time. Had a good chat. But now we continue on trucking, Austin. I think if the 2-man graphics ready to go, the next segment for me that's like really interesting is just what this means for the organizations because we've had so many years of OpTic versus Envy being pretty much the biggest I mean it was for a long time the biggest rivalry in Call of Duty, especially as of late with Crim versus Scump. And I mean, that's still going to be a thing, but it's not going to be quite as it was. Like Empire were, even though you guys in FaZe have kind of become the villains lately because you're too good, but Empire, like, they'd rile up the crowd, like, things would get that rowdy, It just seems so strange that, like, that massive rivalry might be coming to an end because they're effectively merging. That, if it does open a spot to, like, a big org to come in and build another big roster, then I'm down for that. But like as someone who's been around the COD scene a long time, it feels like very much the end of an era because we kind of said goodbye to Envy and OpTic when OpTic Game Los Angeles was a thing, but you know what I mean, going into Modern Warfare, and then we kind of like welcome back OpTic and Empire. To me, almost already has very similar connotations to Envy. Like I think the branding's fantastic, and the fact that might disappear and what the logo looks like is it's just there's just so many questions, and as like a long-time COD fan, it just seems somewhat strange if we have to say goodbye to that rivalry. You know, you want me? I think
The rivalry definitely
Okay,
sucks
maybe.
to lose. It definitely sucks to lose the Envy branding, but the way that I'm kind of looking at this is it's just the best case scenario to keep OpTic in the league for the long run and have them in a position to succeed and be the most competitive. Because if you read all the reports, obviously Energy wanted to sell. Like there's a dispute there that just isn't going to be patched up. So if it gets sold, Hex had an opportunity, they said, to go get funding. It didn't happen. So what would have in my mind, like reading those reports and reading the reports from 3 months ago back, you're either going to get like a shell of OpTic that just can't be competitive, or you're going to get you're going to see them disappear again. Like if the spot gets sold and they can't come in. So being able to partner with somebody in the league that has a strong backing, because Envy actually has a lot of money, and they were able to bring that in correctly. Hastro isn't even at the helm anymore. I believe he just does consulting for the esports side of it now. So, right, I think this is like a very, very good situation for Hex and OpTic as a whole, because it allows him to run the COD team the way he wants to, create content the way he wants to, and not have to deal with any of the business. Like all that's in the back. He doesn't have to deal with any of it anymore, which is where I feel like OpTic has fallen short the last 4 years. They always have something in the back that's holding them back from being what they could, like what they were, right? So I do feel like this is a great opportunity for us to get OpTic back at like the pedestal, like where they deserve, like where they want to be, and have them be competitive and not have to worry about the money issues on the side. So, while it sucks to lose that rivalry, it almost seems like in the past like couple of years we really haven't had that anyways. I feel like it's been more of OpTic versus everybody at times, or like we've had like them versus Toronto this year. You had like us versus Dallas a lot. So there is a lot more rivalries. Like maybe this opens the door to having more of them be put on the like up front. Like have the us versus Dallas now. Have the now Dallas versus Toronto. Have the Toronto versus like Minnesota. Like have that more at the forefront, so we can kind of build some new ones. So it is what you make of it, but I definitely feel like this merger, if it does go through, pulls OpTic out of more of a fuzzy phase that they've been in for the last 4 years with the infinite immortals and energy. Not that energy is even in the wrong or in a bad situation. I really don't know that one as much as I know like the other two. But having them finally put in a stable situation, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be the best thing for OpTic and probably for the league for the future.
Yeah, that may well be true. I think it's really interesting to see what's happened to 100 Thieves, for example, like as an organization these past 3 years compared to where OpTic was pre 100 Thieves even existing, right? Like OpTic is, as a fundamentally COD competitive esports fan, OpTic is obviously massive, but in the grand tide of esports, it's like people know of it, but it's not much more than that, which is quite remarkable to think where 100 Thieves is as an org, winning, like they won the North American like LCS like split or whatever the thing was recently, which is like I even kind of tuned into that because I was interested in 100 Thieves, which is kind of crazy because I don't like what's going on in League of Legends, but I actually kind of tuned in for a bit. So honestly, I'm really impressed by what Nature has built, but obviously it's not just Nature, right? And this is the thing that kind of, in my mind, has separated 100 Thieves and where OpTic is, and maybe where this can actually help in this collaboration, because Nate has been very keen to bring on people who know a lot more about scaling a successful business than he does, and been very willing to be kind of the dumbest person in the room, you could say. Whereas Hector's kind of tried to find partners that maybe can do a similar thing, but it's not really worked out. And obviously he's kept to say, and understandably so, but it just hasn't worked out for him and OpTic like it has for 100 Thieves, you could say. And maybe this is finally a relationship between two like old friends / rivals where it finally does make sense. And it might also help them expand into other esports down the line. I don't know, whether that will happen, but I'm sure Hex is. If it were me and I'm Hex, I'm looking at like my son Nadeshot, like doing all this stuff. Like I don't want to be left too far behind. So it's it might have implications outside of just cards. So
one thing that I love about 100 Thieves is like, so OpTic is a big fish in a small pond. That's the way I like to look at it. But with how esports is now, it's like an ocean. And the thing that Nadeshot did that I will forever respect him for is he wants to be the dumbest man in the room, right? He wants to surround himself with smart people that know what they're doing. So he doesn't have to rely on himself making all the decisions. He can rely on people that are smart in different aspects. So, and he's not a dumb person. He wants to be the dumbest person in the room. He's still one of the smartest people there are, but he just knows how to surround himself with talent that makes correct decisions for him and helps him guide him to the correct decision. So that's why like I will always respect Nadeshot for what he built and like how he's conducted himself over the past like 4, 5, 6 years. So 100 Thieves as an org, that's why I definitely think if we lose like the branding of Envy or like the OpTic Gaming like Envy rivalry, like we still have 100 Thieves, which is one of the best orgs in esports. So I definitely feel like there's ways to overcome that loss, especially if we start recruiting bigger orgs that treat their players correct, one, and that make content too. Like that's why I wanted E United in the league so badly, because they just are. I feel like they're a really good org that has a lot of money, but also focuses on content, which is something we don't really have too much. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that situation there.
yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, perfect time really to talk about some of the whole spot situations available in the league, because it's
Yeah.
an interesting one. Of course, look, we've got this whole Paris Legion stuff, and look, E and I came out kind of like that. One of their social guys did a bit of an explanation onto exactly why this happened the way it did. At the end of the day, if you weren't going to bait the COD scene, you didn't have to put like the two commands in your Twitch chat. There were like Chicago and Paris, the two spots rumored to be up for grabs. You didn't have to play Call of Duty stuff in the background of your screen for like 6 hours before the reveal went live. You're entering the Halo League, like good for you, but you don't have to do that. So like that's an interesting one. I don't know if the Cloud9 stuff is bait, because I saw Jack Etienne replying to Crimsix, and how often do you see them talking about COD stuff? Like, it's very rare. They've never done it before now. Like,
Haven't seen that since
United.
IW.
Well, true, but like, how often do they actually? Yeah, or did you say like they haven't been here since IW? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I
Rather
haven't
than, like,
seen them talk about COD
Yeah,
since
yeah, yeah,
IW.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought you said. Yeah, exactly. Like that they like E United at least. They still talk about it from time to time. So did Rise Nation, for example. But Cloud9 have been radio silent until the possibility of potentially getting a spot is up for grabs. So, like, I don't know, but if it were me and I'm Cloud9, the spot that's most attractive is Chicago. So, yeah, maybe there's also like some sort of alliteration going on there. So, I don't know. Maybe we can make it work. Chicago 9 incoming. Yeah, no doubt. But I don't know what's going to happen. But still, that would be the most exciting thing to me, especially with Jack Etienne coming in. Crimsix's replies, like, get Crim to Chicago on a different org that's now like not Dallas, and that might happen. But I don't know what happens to Paris, by the way, just to mention quickly, because it seems like their trademark has just been chalked off. Like they're not going to be conducting business under that name anymore, and that's been since like the end of July. So like there's no official like trademark on that name anymore, which, I mean, that's a pretty good indication that they might be selling the spot. And look, it's a European spot. Technically, it could move cities. Whether it will or not, I don't know. I think probably the most exciting thing for European COD fans and even French fans, even though like I'm sure they wouldn't be happy to lose the Paris spot, but like they're not exactly the biggest fans of the management over there, right? And the decisions they've made for French COD the last couple of years. So, I wouldn't mind to see Heretics just come in and move this to Madrid. And if another team does buy out Paris, then let's hope they actually care about the French scene, because there's a lot of fans really frustrated with the Paris Legion, and understandably so. Like, what have they actually done for the scene? Like, in 10 years' time, Paris Legion will be the most forgotten org in the history of the CDL.
Yeah. So look, I tweeted this out the other day. Obviously, Paris isn't the best. They obviously haven't committed the most, but we do have a lot of really good orgs within the scene. Like, if you think about it, we have FaZe, Envy, OpTic, obviously that. Misfits, we have Mad Lions, we have Wrecked, we have 100 Thieves, we have Luminosity, we have Anbox, and we have Version 1. Like, we have 11, and then we have Cronky, who I still believe can be a really good organization just because they have money. And I feel like if they find the right people, like, for instance, like their Overwatch team is actually, they turned around really quickly. And I actually just got to meet the GM of their Overwatch team not too long ago at LA. And that I do firmly believe that they can still be a good team. That just, and they've been throwing around a lot of money the last 2 years. They just haven't. I don't know. Obviously they haven't struck gold, but I still feel like they have a future. But the thing that I still keep trying to tell myself is Overwatch went from 12 to 20 teams, right? In year 2, 3. And the CDL hasn't had a full year of lands. Like, they want to showcase the best of the CDL before they expand. So I feel like this is the year that's like pretty crucial to the growth of our scene. So yeah, so getting back on track though, like, I definitely think like having those two spots up for sale kind of hurt expansion this year. If they are up for sale, I definitely feel like if you abandon your trademark, it's pretty close to showing it, and they've also not been around at all for like 2 years. So I definitely see, a Wall Street Journal article came out that said Washington. This was like 3 years or 3 months ago that the Washington Justice owners
Yeah.
were interested. I like them as I actually do like them as an ownership group. They're not like an endemic brand. They came out of like a venture capital. I like them. Maybe I wanted the Chicago United. I felt like that was a cool name for like E United. You still have Rise Nation. You still have a lot of teams. So if Cloud9 does get in, maybe they keep one of those cities. Maybe they move it. That's what a lot of people forget too. You can just move the cities if you like. So unfortunately, like we could lose the Paris spot for a couple years and then it could come back. Part of me wants like Vitality or Gotaga to partner up and get that spot and actually run that spot the way that
That would be
the French
great.
fans deserve. So that would, yeah. Like, part of me thinks like we could get to like NA orgs that move those NA spots, right? And like we have to deal with that for the short term this year, and then next year see like a big boom in the European division. Like, I really hope we do. So
I
yeah,
think we will.
yeah,
But it's a
it's
matter of
tough.
time. I mean, there's a good few cities that could have it. Like, we could easily chuck one in Manchester. I think Charlie's right about that. I think we, for sure,
Berlin,
Madrid. I think Paris. I think a Berlin team. I mean, I'd love to get like a Sydney team at some point. So
Tokyo.
I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, that down the line. We go to 20, but hopefully that'll be possible. Where the actual players and teams are based, who really knows? But yeah, like, I guess another question is, because we've still got some other teams and questions to look at, and we'll talk about Vanguard here in just a second. But like, it just seems like a lot of these teams that are going to try and find a way to form the Avengers, as has been described, to beat you guys, which is obviously going to be a bit of a challenge. I don't know, like, is there any other on paper? Maybe there is, but like super teams that could potentially be formed, because obviously this OpTic Dallas team has a lot of the big ones. I don't know whether it takes someone from Toronto to make a move happen here, because Kleenex, the rumor is there might be possibilities there. So, I'm thinking if I'm trying to form another super team to take down FaZe, I might have to find a way to get Kleenex and like a couple of others. I mean, then again, we did talk about that Thieves team that's pretty scary, and we talked about what New York might do with like with all the talent they have. So there's probably another couple of super teams to be formed here if they want to like go down that route. But I don't know if it involves some of these other teams splitting up, as it probably does. But it's there's so much to even try and predict at the moment.
Yeah, it goes back to which orgs are going to spend money too, because again, there's not a lot of blue chip, like high tier free, like actual free agents. A lot of them are still under contract or require buyouts. One that I do like is Guys, Gunless, Neptune, and Huke. If that one could come to
Man,
fruition, I definitely like that one as like a more cracked out, cracked out gun skill with like gun. I really think Pierce could
Dallas is
lead
a
a team.
great piece actually
Yeah,
for like trying to build some sort of super squad. Like Dallas
yeah.
is actually a really good target.
Yeah, I've talked to him a lot, like late in the last couple months. I definitely think he would be a great IGL to like lead a younger team, because I still think Neptune has a ways to grow. He definitely improved a lot, but I feel like he can still grow a lot. Huke, obviously, he's had a lot of flack for not being fundamentally correct, so I feel like Pierce would be a great way to mold him, especially with the coaching staff they have at Florida. And then Skies is really consistent, like really, like he's like that insight where he just holds it down. So that team, I feel like could be really strong. Other than that, like the LA Thieves. If you get like an Octane, Kenny, Huke, Envoy, like that is another power team. But a lot of like the remaining teams, like they have a potential to really form together. Like if we get like an Afro Nasty, Harry, like there's a lot of EU talent that you could piece together that isn't proven on the top tier scale, but is proven on like the challenger scene. Like they could be a nasty team that just clicks, kind of like Heretics and BO4. So there is a lot of hope. I definitely think a lot of people are forgetting. I feel like a Prestini Venom SMG duo would be one of the best in the league, because the thing with Prestini is like he's very aggressive, and he requires a team that is very that communicates well, right? So his plays come to fruition. Like his aggressive play doesn't punish the team because they're blocking the spawns. The other SMGs there with him. And one of the things that we've heard consistently over the year is that Venom is one of the best communicators that came out of LA Thieves. Like that's all they were saying. He's a great communicator, great speaker. So Prestini, Venom, and then like two ARs, I feel like could be a really strong like Minnesota type team this year, like from this year.
That's a really good shout. Yeah, I wonder. Like, I think there's a couple of great teams that you built in there. Like, I also have really high hopes for what London can potentially do. Like, I want to see them actually put together a competitive team here. Like, if they do get Nasty and Afro and Zero, I think a lot of people are gonna seriously underestimate the gun skill and the talent that's going to come out of those guys, because I was really hopeful the last couple of years with what that might look like. And of course, you got, I don't know, Scraps is maybe the option you want, but it's not a bad pick. That like Scrap Zero, Nasty Afro or something like that. There's some very scary teams you can put together, and especially seeing what Toronto have done, I'd love them to just do that and really give it a go with some relatively unknown talent. Because think about what Clinics and Inside have become this year, and Cami as well is definitely a great shout. Yeah, so it's pretty remarkable stuff. We'll do some, good question, Charlie. We'll do some questions in a few minutes' time when we get to the end. So I think like another one before we go on to talk Vanguard is subliners, because I really don't know what they're planning to do. Zuma's going live with the flank in a bit, so my theory is that he knows something about the subliners that I don't know.
I think he's doing the awards. I think he's doing his awards for the season.
I see. That might be fair enough. Okay, so that might make sense. But anyway, maybe something comes up. But if it doesn't, because it doesn't have to for a few days' time, even though next week we'll probably start to have some announcements. The new question is really strange because I don't know, but my theory is that Crimsix will like go to one of these other big orgs. Like I think whatever Chicago is, that might make a lot of sense. I don't know if I see Crim and Clay necessarily teaming up, but it wouldn't be out of the question. And then you've got Hydra over there, like maybe Clay and Hydra is a duo that could work, and you need an aggro sub. So I know people have talked about Clay, Crim, Hydra, Vivid. I think it would be hard on a seam, certainly, but there's maybe an upgrade to be done there. It depends. Like, a seam was great at the start of the year, but towards the end, like, he wasn't quite maybe what they needed. I don't know. It's tough to say because I do rate him very highly, and other players in similar categories that have great starts to the year maybe fell off, and there's other players like Attach, for example, that had very mediocre starts to the year and then finished like an absolute train, and all of a sudden people are very high on those players again. So I don't exactly know what New York does, but I think Clay. I like to see Clay and Hydra stick as a duo, but I personally don't see more than two players staying on that team. But it's tough to say, but I know that Clayster, just before I hand over, said when he joined this squad that like he wanted to stay on an org for kind of like the rest of his career. And I think it would be nice if he could do that with New York, to be honest, and him and Hydra build around that.
Something that I was thinking about is I think the merger of Chicago and Dallas saved Clay staying on New York. I feel like if that merger didn't happen, I feel like Clay would be Illey, Clay, Crim, and
Yeah,
Shotzzy.
agreed.
So that was one thing I was thinking about the other day. I think I was like, wow, that's actually wild. But I've definitely seen a lot of like Asim Clay or Asim Hydra Clay Crim. I've seen a lot of this roster. Like I saw Hydra Envoy Clay Crim. I've seen like just buy out Standy. Like Minnesota's just gonna give him away for free. Let's do Standy. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, there is a couple of realistic. Like you could do if you could get Kleenex away from Toronto, you could pair him with Hydra, right? Like that wouldn't be too bad.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I definitely think I think there's a strong possibility that Clay and Crim team up again.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like that duo makes sense on paper. If they do that, then maybe like Draza and Envoy if you want to reset, right? And you could get that. Maybe you could trade. You can get Huke on that team. Who can Hydra. I feel like it's just what you decide to do with your SMGs. So there definitely is a ton of possibilities. There's so many different like splits over there. So yeah, I feel like a big question too that we haven't really touched on is where Slasher goes. I just saw that in the chat too.
It's a
Where do
big
you
one.
think he ends up?
Great question. I think this is the thing because there's so many new orgs. I wouldn't be incredibly surprised to see him go to like LAG or something and form like a monster roster there. I don't see personally him just like slotting into another team. Like people talk about Minnesota, and I was thinking that mid-season that like a slasher to rocker makes a lot of sense, but just the way their season finished. I don't think you really want to potentially mess up the chemistry of that team by slotting in Slasher for Maniac or something. So I think just the fact that all of these squads are making so many drastic moves makes me think that you're going to have some of these teams who decide to say, okay, like let's say you got LAG, it's like, all right, enough's enough. Like we've used these kind of like old, washed talent, you could well say, for the last couple of years hasn't really worked out for us, and even the amateurs have picked up haven't been great. Like let's just get a guy like Slasher who wants to prove himself more than anything. You've already got the storyline there with Thieves, if it does happen. We're willing to spend a lot of money and get some good pieces. And just like our Slasher, who he wants to actually get, because the problem is if you join a squad that has less money or less status, then you take the ability off the table to actually get great teammates. And Slasher wants a team that can win, but what I hope he doesn't say is like, all right, let's get John, let's get Apathy. Like I feel like that's not a recipe for success. But that I think that's most likely. If I was an org, I would try and build around Slasher from the top down rather than try and slot him in because that can be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I definitely think you give him the reins. I do like him going to LAG. Just again, LAG has a lot of money. They're gonna want to. They're gonna try to get this right on the third time around. Um, I do see him going to like an organization like that. I would hope that he would try to bring Draza with him if he's not on the LA Thieves roster, just because Draza is very flexible. I feel like he would be
Great
someone where you
pick.
can plug and play, and he suits in. A good shout is if one of the ARs from Florida leaves, whether that's Awakening or Skies. I feel like you could plug and play him as at either one of those as a flex around Slasher, and then that trio right there obviously has just a ton of gun skill right off the rip. So it's just about finding that fourth player, whether that's Ace, if he doesn't stay with New York. That's whether you maybe go for like a challengers player like Royalty, but I feel like Slash has always gone for the more proven talent, the more proven
Yeah.
veterans instead of going for that. So um, There is a lot of questions because again, there's not a ton of top tier talent that are actual free agents. A lot of them have a lot of big buyouts. So yeah, it's really tough to just say like I want this, this, and this, and then like we can just sign them. You got to go to those organizations, do buyouts. It's a long, tedious process, which is why again, Crone said this the other day. I think it was on Reddit. You're not seeing a ton of splashes yet because it's just conversation, conversation, conversation. And then when one piece falls, you would think all the dominoes do, but no, it's just like one piece falls and then you have to do that all over again. So yeah, a lot of like progress is in the works, and so it takes a while to actually build out rosters.
Yeah, for sure. I think like Slasher plus Gunless would be a nice duo I'd like to see back.
Rise
Slasher
Nation.
main, Gunless flex, give it the kind of Rise Nation vibes. I think that could really work. And pair that with a great SMG duo, whatever that is, whether you can snag like Envoy and CleanX, whether you like get Vivid back on NAG. I know that'd be a bit weird, but
I don't hate
Draz
the
is also
Vivid
a
and
good
Draza.
shout. Like yeah, exactly. That's what I'd like to see because I think that can. I think they would, especially with Gunner seems to have reformed his personality to some degree. I think that could really be a scary way to start. So if Slasher comes in with a vision like that to one of these orgs, like I think that they can see that as well, especially with some of these teams that have had a tough time the last couple of years and are probably thinking, all right, let's change our philosophy or our foundation to some degree. We will dive into questions in a few minutes' time here, guys. I did want to touch on, before we finish off the show, Vanguard, Austin, because we've seen the alpha this week. There's definitely been some first impressions. I didn't get a chance to play. I was busy these last couple of days. But look, it looks kind of like Modern Warfare, understandably so. It seems to feel kind of like Modern Warfare. It's on the same engine. There have been some complaints. I've seen people talking, and I think like when you get shot, the screen goes too dark, which, from my knowledge, that seemed to be an issue back in World War II as well, and they
It
eventually
was.
fixed it.
It's been
Not
an
really sure
issue
what it is
in
with
Modern
certain
Warfare too.
games. Oh yeah, maybe we're at the start of Modern Warfare, so okay, whatever. I guess they'll fix that one. But yeah, did you get a chance to play? Like from the streams I watched, I didn't necessarily think that Champion Hill was the best game mode to sell me on the game. And I don't really know that there's destructible environments. I want to see until the beta to make my actual mind up, I think, but I don't know. I've had more positive opening impressions, is what I'll say.
I purposely haven't watched a second of it because obviously the game doesn't come out for another 2 months, and I should be able to play the beta, but like the alpha, I knew it was going to be iffy. I remembered last year's alpha was just gunfight, so and I still only have a PS4, so I was just like, do I really run this game on a PS4 on an alpha that is guaranteed to have a bad like it's probably gonna be a bad first impression and just ruin it for me? And I was just like, nah, I'm just gonna clock it out. I'll wait till like the beta. I'll wait till more of like towards launch because I know they're gonna like the thing of like the blood and the like where it like gets too grainy when you're getting shot at. That's an easy fix, right? That's one of those ones where you say like this is horrible and they change that within like 2 days. So I definitely think they're probably reading all of this feedback because I like saw like one clip of like Scump getting shot at and I was just like, well, yeah, not playing that this week, and we'll see how they fix that. So I definitely feel like they'll fix it. They'll get it right. I have more promise for this game than I have in a while. So yeah, I'm not gonna let the first impression of an alpha ruin it for me.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, I'm optimistic. We think there's going to be a lot of maps in this game. Competitive support and feedback from Sledgehammer has always been good, so I'm optimistic. That's the exciting thing, right? Like we have a new COD every year. It always throws a spanner in the works. But let's dive into some questions from the chat. I think I saw one from Lucius Edition here on like LAT team and coaches. We kind of talked through like Octane, Kenny, Envoy, Huke could be a good one. I don't know if like you think there's, I guess just to evolve that question somewhat, the whole coaches side. Do you think there's any teams that kind of switch out their coaching staff? Because at the end of the day, I think Thieves are going to like stick with JCap and say, okay, maybe not. Some of the decisions might not have been the best, but it doesn't really make sense to just kick the guy. But some teams have let go of their coaches. Like, do you think there's room for upgrades in certain elements? Because there's certainly a lot of coaches that have done things in challenges. I mean, we saw Fenix seemingly getting picked up by Seattle. We've got Dariel, right, who's done a lot of great things in the European scene. Seems like maybe there's some room for some of these coaches that haven't had much success, that maybe they were good coaches, maybe they weren't. It's very tough to say. But if the organization thinks they weren't, then like we could feasibly get some like coach shuffles as an intention to help improve a team as a marginal benefit.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see some coaching shuffles. I'll add this too. A lot of people just assume that Jake Cap was behind all of those roster changes, which I think
Yeah,
is very
right.
interesting. It's just like he's instantly lumped in, and obviously when you really can't, he's not going to come out and say yes or no. But it's just interesting to see that like everyone blames him for every bad move, as a whole. So yeah, just remember there's a whole organization behind him that obviously is going to help make those decisions. So I think that, I'll start with LA Thieves. They have a really very, very good foundation for a coaching staff. I just think they just need someone like they just need someone that's going to be more of like the hype factor, the more of the like rallying the troops. So uh, like JCaps was one of the most incredible IGLs in COD history. He was very smart. He's obviously going to be a huge asset. That team's not going to just throw him away because they had one rough year. I think that's just preposterous. That's stupid. That would be a bad way to run your organization if you do that. They have, in my opinion, one of the best analysts in the game. I love Brandon. So they just need one piece to like plug and play, to be that double side of the coin. The best way we like to talk about it within our organization is like we have RJ do one scrim, Crowder do one scrim, and then like usually like I'm there all the time and like Pox there for S&D, right? So it's not one voice just telling you what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. It's multiple voices. So you don't get used to it. You don't get irritated because when you just have one voice, just constantly telling you this is what you're doing wrong, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do wrong, and you're doing that for 9 months, 7 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, it gets tedious. So like having that double side of the coin is actually really useful for not draining your players mentally and your coaches, because coaching is actually stressful as hell. But yeah, I definitely think you already saw like the start of it. Obviously Shane, I like him a lot. He got released from London. Bobble got released from New York. So there's already starting of a coaching shuffle, and there's probably a lot more going on in the background that we just don't know about yet. So um, there is a ton of coaching talent. I tweeted out a whole list. There's a ton of coaching talent in the AM ranks. So hopefully there are a lot of, and we got Joey. Joey's actually a really good, like I think he's a really good analytical coach, really good like coach on that side. So it's just about finding like, I don't think every organization needs 4 coaches. I just think you need an analyst and you need like 2 coaches that work well with each other, that provide like the other side of the coin. Like one guy's really good at this side, but maybe his weakness is this, and the other coach, his strength is that weakness, and they give and take with each other, and they bring the best out of the players. So that will definitely be a interesting end to the roster mania that really hasn't started yet.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a very interesting take. There's loads of questions. I don't know if you want to pick one out, Austin. I think there's an interesting one about mutineers. I guess we can just quickly touch on like, will mutineers pay out like big money for some of these bigger name pros, or will they go down the rookie route? Because they've done a great job in building their team, like really unexpectedly scary teams of talent that no one else has really taken a chance on. Like, Skies, Awakening, Neptune, especially in that category. Ferro, of course, rest in peace. So like they've done a cracking job of doing that. But maybe if you want to win events on the big stage on LAN, you could argue with all 12 teams in attendance, not how it was in Modern Warfare with the home series, that you need to like make a big move and bring in like a big player, you could say, to pair with like a Skies or Neptune or whatever the case may be. But I don't know if that's necessarily their mindset, because I don't know. Like, obviously, you want to win, but some of these orgs can, if you've got the scouting ability like that, they've got Yeez, they think he's going to be a good talent going forwards. Like, they could be an org that does a very good job and makes a fair bit of money by bringing up young talent and then, like, flipping them onto some of the big teams. And that might be their kind of, maybe they're satisfied with that role in the league as to where they can make money by being great at scouting, but also win, maybe make finals or maybe even win an event with whatever roster they put together, but it's never going to be a top dog. So I don't know if they have the money to like make a massive move, but I wonder.
They actually have they should have a ton of money. They're backed by for anyone that watches the NBA, they're backed by the Miami Heat, the ownership group that owns them. So they actually a lot of these orgs have a ton of money in the back. But one thing I'll say about Misfits is like when you look at like their Overwatch team, they're notorious for not really spending and like selling a lot of their good play, like flipping them. And like Misfits as an org, like they just don't spend a lot. And one thing that we saw this year is like they had a chance, they had a really strong chance to get Huke, and they didn't. But
Yeah.
what I kind of like in my head, what I link them to is for anyone that watches baseball, like the Tampa Bay Rays. Like they're not spenders, but what they do, but they know that, right? And they know for them to be competitive, they have to develop talent. They have to find the diamond in the rough, which they've done consistently since day one. So like Frosty, Pharaoh, Awakening, Neptune, Skies, even because Skies was kind of
Skies was a good shout.
Skies
People
really
were unsure about after
unsure.
Black Ops 4, you know.
Yeez now. So like they've consistently since day one like noticed like that's how they're gonna have to win. So that was always like my worry with them is like are they really gonna pay Hook's buyout? Are they gonna pay the salary for Hook and Gunless if they can get those two? Like in my head I keep saying no. But like it's tough. Like, who are they gonna partner around them? Like, are they gonna stick in Yeez? Are they gonna look for like if one of their ARs leave? Are they gonna look for the next cracked out? Are they gonna go towards Mohawks? Right, the young, cracked out, unproven, the guy that you can get on the lower side, right? So that would be something to look forward to. On that side for the uh, Florida side.
Do you want to pick out a question or two, Austin?
I'll do the one that just came in with a limited number of spots available. Could we start seeing more players switch roles, i.e., Kenny and Temp onto the AR? I think we're seeing that within the last year, and what that's created is like that vacuum of SMGs. Like we need SMGs in the league really badly, because like you see like a lot of like the top tier SMGs, like for instance, Venom in the amateur scene had a 1.3. He was absolutely frying, and like I still think he is a CDL caliber player, but he didn't perform on that like huge level. And like you see like the obviously like top 10 SMGs, but the bottom 10 SMGs really struggled. So you're definitely going to see a lot of players that struggled on that SMG try to switch over to the AR. Like I've said it. I've actually said this a lot. Is Prestini would be a phenomenal flex player, like great flex player. When you think about when he was at his best, was United Maddox, United and IW. He was an AR when he first came up. He was an AR. I think he's kind of like he reminds me of Cammy, where like excellent gun skill, perfect communicator, likes that leadership role, and I feel like if he gets a chance to prove himself, he would be disgusting on a flex. But like, what we need, you've seen that switch, but like, what we need is more like switches to an SMG, more like cracked out SMGs coming up the ranks, because that's something that is missing. But it's also the hardest role to fill because you're usually blamed first for when things go wrong. The ARs are usually blamed last, even though a lot of the times, they could be helping their SMGs perform better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, another question that kind of ties into this is about Kenny, right? And like whether that could work. Like, I don't know. To me, I think that it was clearly the exception to the rule that he was nasty with the SMG rather than kind of like the how it is. At the same time, there are players, if you're as talented as Kenny, you could probably make it work with like all the roles. I mean, you got to think about in a way what Scump was up to in Infinite Warfare. That's kind of the way I look at it. That at the start of the year, a lot of the SMGs, when the ERAD wasn't very good, were having a really hard time. And when the ERAD got, I don't know if it got buffed or like it was just, I think maybe it got buffed slightly, but it was more prevalent towards the end. And like there were a lot of SMGs putting up insane numbers. And in a similar way to how Kenny was like with the Sorg, let's say in Black Ops 4, when at the start of the title, like he was really struggling on the Sorg, but towards the end, the Sorg actually got a buff and like the hit scan, and like it was maybe the best weapon in the game. So I think that there's some players that are talented enough that if they stick with the role and stick with a weapon, they can make it work. Like I think that there's a lot of the, Simp and Shotzzy and these type of players. Put them on anything, they'll make it work, I reckon. But if Kenny does feel more comfortable in the AR role, which I do think is probably where he is more comfortable, then if you want to build an actual best of the best team, I think that you don't risk putting him on an SMG and you put him in the flex role because you don't know what the method is going to be like anyway, right? Having Kenny as your flex could be fantastic because if it is a traditional World War II flex where you need a PPSH or you need a bar or an STG, then Kenny might actually be perfect in that role. And yeah, Gunless is another player. That's why I put him in the category earlier. So I think that if you want to build the best possible team, you've got to put players where they are most comfortable.
Yeah.
Whatever that means for roles.
People have to remember, Kenny's been playing for like 6-7 years, and only one title he was an SMG. And in that title, people keep saying, "Oh, this is like World War II," but like in reality, like this is more like Modern Warfare. This is going to be nowhere close to World War II. The PPSH in World War II was extremely good at hip firing, right? It was snappy, and every game since then, that's it's closer to ARs than any SMG that we've had since then. A lot of the SMG play requires you to be pre-aiming, requires you to be, it's like sliding in first and reacting. It's not Kenny's strong suits. That's not his strong suits. His strong suits are finding power positions, snapping on people from far distances, and just letting him be himself, letting him get aggressive, do what he wants to do on the map. So that is, in essence, a flex position. That's what he should be. Every time I see a roster with 100 Thieves and it's just force Kenny to be an SMG, I just kind of laugh because 100 Thieves realize that to be successful, they're going to have to put the players in the best positions to succeed, and doing that would not include putting Kenny in an SMG, right? So you won't see that. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that one. Kenny is a phenomenal AR player. He will be a phenomenal flex player for the future, and he's up there with the likes of Cammy and Cell and Dashy. So he just has to have more time to grow into that role and be comfortable with that. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
I want to answer Charlie's question before we finish because he's been trying his best.
London?
The London one. I think this is a really interesting idea because there's not many teams that have a chance, and well, to be fair, not usually, but now there kind of is, teams that could say to a guy like Slasher or to a guy like Methods or some other AR, like Seattle could do this reasonably, Paris could do this reasonably, and say, look, all right, here you go, main AR, veteran, build a team. Does that mean complete rookies? Because this is going into Modern Warfare. This was a really interesting discussion to me as to what you should do building your team of 5. Do you need 2 veteran heads? This is kind of like the Dallas Empire versus Atlanta FaZe, a Modern Warfare discussion. Dallas had Crim and Clay, and you guys it wasn't clear who the leader type, experienced player was. And we kind of saw how that played out. So nowadays it's in 4v4, do I need 2 kind of veteran heads still? Can I get away with 0 and 3 up and coming UK talents, really? Because it's I think it's a great question. Do you get Afro, Nasty, and Harry, Gizmo, someone like that? Or do you get Afro, Nasty, and Scraps, which is probably achievable if you wanted it, if they wanted to play with each other, and might be more, I would have that team as maybe a more solidly placing team, but I don't know if it's necessarily a 100% winning team. It's a really interesting question. So I think if you're London, I would be tempted to just take the chance and put my faith in 0 and whatever coaching stuff you want to do because Shane is gone. So as you say, coaching shuffles are going to happen. So it's tough. If you're not a team that's expected to immediately be competing for titles, I might take the risk, to be honest.
One thing, so London as an organization, obviously it has RAC, it has a lot of owners in it. One thing that I feel like they've tried to take advantage of but haven't yet is they're one of the only teams, organizations in the league that has tried to take advantage of the European talent. They've had London Academy twice. If I'm them, this, I know it might not have been worth the money in the past, but this season, with I truly believe that there will be lands for the entire season for the Pro League. I feel like the best thing you can do is pick up as many rookie European players and bring them over. Because you don't know how they're going to be. You don't know how they're going to react. Like obviously you can be amazing in the challengers division, but obviously in Europe there's only like 8 or 9 good teams. Like what happens when you get to the pro league and you're being anti-stratted, you're going up against best competition consistently and in practice, right? I would love them to go down the Toronto route that they had in year one. And when you look at it, the Toronto route in year one brought them Kleenex, it brought them Cammy, right? They got insight this year off of that, right? I do feel like if they bring in, Nasty, bring in 3 rookies to start, right? Bring in Trey, bring in Nasty, have Afro, and then have like Harry, but then also have like a Gizmo, a Bids, bring in a Maddie to lead that second unit, and bring in another young guy from the European division, maybe like a Bean, maybe there's actually a ton of European talent, and just try to play around with that lineup, see what works best, and then if not, have that challengers team that you're giving your people from England a chance. You're bringing people from Europe that have a chance to one play against American competition, which I'm not saying it's better or worse, but what I am saying is then you get like the hardest thing for European players right now is I feel like a lot of them don't get on teams because like I've heard a lot of like actually like NA players talk about this. They've never played with them. They don't know how they communicate. They don't know their tendencies. They don't know maybe some of these European players have perfect personalities, but the NA players who are actually trying to pick them up, they don't know that, right? So what's easier, taking a risk on a European talent who you don't know personally at all, or getting a NA challengers player who you have played eights with, who you played league play with, or known of, or can talk to people easily that have played with them, right? So if I'm London, one, it's good rep. Like you're back in the good graces of European like players and fans if you bring over a bunch of young people and get them over to the States. And one, you could sell off those players if they do well, and two, you can get the best team for not only this year but for years to come. So I feel like that would probably be the best route that I would recommend London to take.
I think that's fair enough. I also think that might be a pretty good place to end it. We've been going for a while, Austin. Lionman earlier in the show as well. There's so many questions right now. I'm sure we'll get to the ones next week that we didn't get to this week. And the flank's just about to start up. It's going to be an exciting one. Vortex. I was just about to mention Vortex actually because I think he definitely deserves a mention. He's been around for a long time. He's done great things, and he was killing it this season as well. So I think that I think any of those guys, like I'm so impressed whenever I watch and spectate the European Challenger scene and what they consistently bring to the table, and often the maturity, to be honest, like compared to the North American side, and that's a pretty big thing, especially when the talent certainly is there.
Those guys need to get over to the States. If I can recommend anything for them,
Cruise, right?
Yeah, like that, because there is going to be expansion sometime down the road, and the best way to get picked up by teams is to be able to communicate with these guys, the NA players, play with them, to get reps with them, so they can learn about you. You have to get over to the States. I know it's extremely difficult, and like even with COVID, it might even be impossible. But like the one thing I'll tell European players over and over again is you have to find a way to get over to the States, because if you do that, your career will just shoot up because you have an immense amount of talent, like all of them. It's just you guys just have to get your personalities out there, your comms out there. You got to show these players like who you are as a player. So get over to the States, play as much as you can. That's why I hated about this Renegades team. Right? Like they had a chance to get over to the States, they ended up making it over. And like we still have so many question marks about them, even though they played great this year. There's so many question marks. Like if you want to ruin those question marks and you want to prove yourself as a CDL player, like get over here, kick ass. Like I know you guys would, and we'll see way more European players in the league once that happens.
Absolutely. Okay then. Well, thank you all for joining us in the chat. It has been a phenomenal ride. We will be back this time next week, and by this time next week, September the 5th will have come and gone, and we should have some idea, maybe. Well, I'm sure we're going to have more idea what's going on, but we're going to have potentially some announcements coming out. So it's going to be a crazy off season, especially these next few weeks, Austin. Any final words, right? Because I guess it's kind of nice in a way that you get to sit back and relax to a degree and watch the chaos unfold without having to be concerned about how things are going to go yourself.
Yeah, well, I gotta kind of do that, but hopefully, like I get to relax. I've been relaxed in the last 2 weeks. It's been so nice to not have to do anything, and just relax and see all the roster drama unfold. So I'm here watching your videos every day.
We love the roster drama. Fantastic stuff. Thanks all for joining us. Thanks for all watching on YouTube, and leave us a comment, leave us a like on all that good stuff. I think like 4K subs is either there or it's there or thereabouts. All the other platforms as well have been killing it, and Twitch is always a fantastic time. So catch us live if you have the opportunity to do so next time round. We'll try and get like at some point a consistent date and time, but it's just a bit of a challenge with Lion and with people
3
working
time
and stuff.
zones.
It's time zones make it challenging, more challenging than I'd like, but we can make it work going forwards. Thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Fantastic.